Starbucks closed more than 8,000 of its stores Tuesday afternoon for racial bias training. The move is a response to an incident at a Philadelphia Starbucks last month. Police arrested two black men, Rashawn Nelson and Dante Robinson, after they asked to use the restroom without making a purchase. The company says Tuesday's curriculum encouraged employees to learn to act on values, to develop welcoming behaviors, and to commit to new habits. Starbucks Executive Chairman Howard Schultz appeared Tuesday on CBS This Morning. Here's how he characterized the training.
Most importantly, it's to try and provide the reference and the tools for people to understand that we all have had a life experience, and that life experience has provided us with a level of understanding that may be different than the level of understanding you have. And it doesn't have to be about race. It could be about ethnic background, sexual orientation, your station in life. But it's all about trying to provide a level of empathy and compassion and a new level of sensitivity.
Brittney Cooper is an associate professor of women's and gender studies as well as Africana Studies at Rutgers University. She joins me now with more on this. Welcome to you, Brittney.
Thank you.
So you heard from Howard Schultz there describe the goals of this implicit bias training. What do you think about this approach?
You know, I want to say that we should remain critically unimpressed. I think that, of course, Starbucks is doing a good thing, but it's the least that they could do. What we really have to be focused on is making sure that white Americans who feel unsafe around black people have some tools to think about why that is, and also that even when they feel unsafe, they don't deploy the police as a personal security force for their concerns. So I think that I appreciate Starbucks getting in the fight on this. That matters, but it's really just a beginning.
So what do you think specifically is missing here?
Well, look, first of all, we can't solve problems of race relations and implicit bias with one day of training and closing the store. So in many ways, what we run the risk of is that this act will appear symbolic rather than substantive. The other thing is that you see Schultz kind of waffling a bit and saying, well, this is not necessarily only about racism. It might also be about ethnocentrism, when really we've got to be on the front lines of saying we have a racial problem in this country. This is one of the ways it shows up with very often white Americans, not only, but very often using the police in this way.
You think there's a problem broadening it out?
I think so. Not because we don't have other kinds of bias, but because racial bias is the thing we really struggle to talk about. So we're, more open to talking about issues of bullying or, we've come very far on thinking about LGBTQ issues. But racial bias we really struggle with.
People are really uncomfortable talking about race.
Absolutely.
So Starbucks said that Tuesday's trainings were not a solution, but rather a first step. So logical next steps for you would be what?
Well, look, I think that we don't even want to make this about Starbucks. I don't think any corporation can solve the problem. This is why I do the work that I do as a teacher in schools to try to teach students. So I think that part of what we need to think about is what happens, how can we make this available in communities, in churches, in the places where people frequent, in schools, for young people. The earlier we begin these conversations, the better off we'll be as a society. We can't expect that the few Americans that get to go to Starbucks are the only folks that need to confront this. Everyone does.
Yeah, I mean, nevertheless, at the same time, they are looking for some next steps here. What would you advise Howard Schultz?
Well, look, I would advise him to keep a team of educators and folks who work on these issues on the board. It would be really great if they made this an annual thing. It would be great if they had some quarterly kinds of responses where, what kinds of evaluation mechanisms are they doing so that they can see whether there's been real progress on the goals that they set.
Yeah, no, really important questions. I'm certain that we'll be continuing to talk about this in the years ahead. Brittney Cooper, thank you so much for your insight. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.